Hello all, I welcome you to another interesting session of Mendel's bicentenary celebrations. I'm glad to introduce myself. I am Mercy Rofina. I'm pursuing my PhD in Dr. Vinod Skaria's lab at CSIR IGIB. Today, we'll have an interesting session with our guest, who's Dr. Girisha, who's the professor and head of the Department of Medical Genetics, Kasturiba Medical College. His research interests are primarily focused on Mendelian disorders, skeletal dysplasia, and dysmorphy. And to mention a few of his achievements and contributions in this field, he's a member of the International Society of Skeletal Dysplasia, and also he's a founding member and secretary of the Indian Academy of Medical Genetics. So it's a pleasure to have you here in this platform today, sir. Thanks for accepting the invite to share your thoughts and opinions about this field of human genetics in our nation. So let me start by asking what are your current research interests, or is there any particular disease you're focusing on right now?
Good morning, Mercy. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for the invite. We have been working in the field of rare diseases, mostly Mendelian diseases, for the last 15 years, a little more than 15 years. Currently, we have a very large group of clinicians and scientists working in the field of rare diseases. If you see, our research interests mostly have been on monogenic diseases or Mendelian disorders. It spans identification of syndromes or rare conditions, and making a diagnosis using the latest available genetic technologies, and identify the phenotypic differences or uniqueness, and then discover new diseases and conditions. So our department at Manipal has a clinical team comprising 3 clinical geneticists and a research team. We have another additional 5 faculty. And we think we are now about 60-65 people working in the unit. And we have basic researchers who are proficient in cell and molecular biology. And we have a diagnostic unit for rare diseases, which is NABL accredited lab. Right. And research is something which all of us participate. If you see the investigator-led areas, I like skeletal dysplasia more than other fields. And then my colleague Anju Shukla works on neurodevelopmental disorders. My colleague Dhanya Lakshmi works on autoinflammatory disorders and immunological genetic disorders. Right. Then we have Bhavani, who works on immunodeficiencies, Shalini, who works on fetal malformations and genetic abnormalities in the intrauterine life. And we have Priyanka Upadhyay, who works on cell and molecular biology and Drosophila as a model for human diseases. Then we have Debashish Ghosh, who has recently joined. He leads mostly cell and molecular biology, autophagy, are his interests. We have one more new person, Dr. Amit, joining us. So, and we have Ramarao, who works on cancers. Okay, so this is how our team is currently working on. My specific interest has been rare diseases and skeletal dysplasia. In clinical practice, all clinicians see all rare diseases, but for research, we have some preferences.
That was like indeed a wide variety of interests. Your research group has a very wide variety of interests, sir. So moving on, like you being a professor also, you get to see students on a daily basis, and you would have handled multiple batches. Do you think there has been a lack of interest, or the interest has increased about learning human genetics, the Mendelian principles? Like, what would you say is the importance of learning human genetics for a student? And what does your say on the need of awareness in general public also?
I would say the number of applicants increase every year.
Nice.
So if it is a measure of interest, I would say that there is an increased interest. But it also might be because of awareness. It might awareness of diseases, more than diseases, awareness of the programs, and maybe awareness of the available job opportunities if you are trained in genetics, which is definitely increasing. So we have three streams of academic programs. One, we have a DM program. We train clinicians in genetics, medical genetics. We train them in lab as well as train them in the clinic. So that is the DM program, which is National Medical Council approved or accredited program. And then second, we have PhD program where all our PhD students work on diseases, most rare diseases. Okay, I think your team also does the same thing. So we work on human diseases, identifying genetic defects and new disorders. And third program is Master of Science in Genetic Counseling.
Okay.
Today, genetic counseling is coming into mainstream. It is a very small group of professionals in the country. In fact, we were first in the country to start a Master of Science program in genetic counseling.
Okay.
So we have 17 people who have graduated and now spread across the country. I think one of them is in US. But genetic counseling, as you would understand, it is one of the important component of management of rare diseases. So we
Nice.
have that program. That program is gaining popularity. Every year we have 20 to 30% increase in the number of applicants. So that means there are youngsters who want to take up uh, caring for rare diseases as well as managing the rare diseases and also interested in research in Mendelian disease.
Right, sir. So, genetic, as you said, on the similar note, like genetic counseling is something which would directly contribute to spreading awareness, also, like taking it
Right.
more to the public.
Right.
So, and sir, like when we talk about Mendelian disorders and when we talk about the awareness, there's always one more thing to be discussed, which is the stigma. Like most of the Mendelian disorders, and since it runs through families, there will be a stigma attached to it. And as a clinician and as a professor, how do you, what is your say on bringing it down, or what could be one step which we could take to just reduce it in future?
Yeah, stigma, I think it is not just limited to genetic disorders.
Right.
I agree partly with you because there is implication for the family members. It is
Mm-hmm.
for with any disease. Traditionally, we have been not forthcoming about our own personal health or information, which may still be relevant to family members.
Mm-hmm.
But genetics is something which I think young adults who are in the age of marriage might have a family history of a breast
Mm-hmm.
cancer or family history of Huntington disease, which is very tough.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where genetic counseling or professional counseling helps them to cope up. Okay, you cannot avoid it because stigma is not that you create. Stigma is created by the society or people around you. So
Mm-hmm.
we just help them to navigate these times or issues by
Mm-hmm.
education. Okay,
Right.
educating about their health implications and how to handle, how to cope up. Psychological support, counseling support are also very crucial.
Mm-hmm.
If people do not reach the medical service, then they may be deprived of these things, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes lack of awareness may protect them if they do not know this as familial implications. But
Okay.
those who are educated, those who have a family history, as a counselor or as a clinician, it is really tough to handle such situations.
Mm-hmm.
And every family, every individual with rare diseases, they try to find ways to cope up with these kind of situations and live with it. Most
Right.
of the times we do not have a treatment, but our role, what I feel, is to guide them, enable them, support them, right, to cope up with this stigma or stresses associated with the being diagnosed with a genetic disorder or rare disease, or having a family member. Like there may be a brother or sister
Mm-hmm.
of a person who might want to marry,
Mm-hmm.
and they might have a risk. So whether to tell before the marriage to the future spouse or
Right.
tell afterwards, I think it is the clinician or the counselor need to be really uh, uh, get involved with the family, because
Mm-hmm.
every family is unique. Every family has different values, different social surroundings. So the beauty lies in the professional understanding their situation and helping them to navigate without compromising on ethical principles or social justice. This is what it is not easy for both the professional as well as the family. It is very difficult,
Yes.
but we need to navigate through this tough situation.
That was indeed a very interesting and unique point, sir. Like whatever you have stated, not compromising the ethics also, whereas educating the family also about the situation. So, sir, now that the technologies, either be it the genomic technologies like sequencing, genetic, like diagnostic tests, all the prices of these technologies coming down at a very rapid scale. So, what do you think is more needed in future for a great advancement in this field, which will help in shaping the national public health policies? Like, what would you think is that one step which is needed in India as a clinician? What is your say on that?
Okay, this is really, there is no one important thing. There are several issues what we need to do.
Right.
I think, see, whatever is my opinion is of very limited experience. Okay, and I would say the most important task, if our administrators or the policymakers have to take, is to start genetics as a subject for medical graduates, full-fledged subject. Because we have anatomy, physiology, but we do not have genetics as a mainstream subject. Okay, genetics or immunology has to be taught through the MBBS, right? So MBBS doesn't have genetics as a subject, which is really important, because all fields of medicine, like you take pediatrics, you take oncology, urology, hematology, endocrinology, all of them see genetic disorders every day. Okay, so that is where I think, one, to bring in genetics as a mainstream subject for undergraduate medical education, and definitely in postgraduate education. And we need lot of trained counselors, lot of trained medical geneticists in the country. We need scientists who are trained in medical genetics, like who work with human diseases and genetic technologies. If though the technology is rapidly advancing, it is becoming cheaper, we really do not have sufficiently trained manpower, either clinician or counselor or a scientist or a laboratory scientist who can handle genetic technologies, or a bioinformatician. So we don't have sufficient for this 1.4 billion population of our country. I think education is where we need to improve. Awareness among the public is rapidly evolving, rapidly increasing, more than in the medical field, I would say. Because medical field we have higher expectation, but public are aware of rare diseases, okay, and the technological advances. I think, if you ask me to point out something single, then I would say the education in this field and training manpower needs to be mm, improved. And the second, as a health policy, it is little far-fetched, but I think genetic testing at a very early stage of rare diseases or Mendelian diseases would save the cost. Okay, unfortunately, we do not have a health scheme where we can test all the people from public funds or even sponsored funds. It is not possible, because even today they are little expensive. But I think it is time that we educate clinicians, we tell people, and we implement genetic testing at the early stage of the onset of symptom, so that one, diagnosis is clear and there is no ambiguity, and proper management steps can be taken for the family. And in India, we can use prevention by prenatal diagnosis and opting for continuation of healthy fetuses. So this is an option to reduce the burden of rare diseases in our country.
That was indeed a very relevant point, sir. So now that like whatever you have stated was whatever science is being done in the lab, that should be translated and used for shaping a better health policy, or which leads to a better quality of life of the patients. So since we are in the end of our session, so what will be your message for a MBBS undergrad student or a student who is in research especially in the field of human genetics. Like, if you have something to a kind of encouragement message or a motivation message, if you want to give to students, young researchers in this field, that would be great. We'll be eager to hear from you.
This is actually from my personal viewpoint. I
Yes.
feel this field is ever challenging.
Mm.
Every patient
Mm.
behaves in a different way.
Mm.
Every patient, even if it is a known diagnosis, you have so many challenges to handle, and never your career is boring. Okay,
Right.
it is never repetitive. Okay, every patient, every test, every interpretation teaches you something. You learn new things. You have new professional challenges every day, and discovery of new diseases is something which is now easier than
Mm.
before, and is possible for even less privileged labs, because
Mm.
techniques are so advanced, and
Mm.
networks are so easy to make in the current era of information technology. So
Mm.
I enjoy finding new diagnoses, new discoveries, finding new genes, new diseases, and helping the family who has helped you in your career by contributing their samples, because
Mm.
you can do prenatal diagnosis, counsel them. So this is one which is, it takes little a longer time. It is not today or tomorrow, but a couple of years or 3 years is a good time
Mm.
where you do research and give it back to the patients and families. So this is
Mm.
one of the most academically, intellectually satisfying profession. So that is what I have to say to all the youngsters who want to take up medical genetics in their career.
Right, sir. It was really insightful talking to you, sharing your viewpoints and opinions about the advancements in this field and what do you think as a future need. So, thanks a lot for joining us here today, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Mercy, for this invitation and questions.
Thank you so much.